Is David? Yes. How did we decide on Bok Kay Temple? We asked David. David hooked us up. David took us to a bunch of temples, some in SF, some over here, and then once we got to the Bok Kay Temple, it just felt like, I think some of the things that we loved was, originally we were designing the temple, and the set is it's set in 2002 in Toronto, and so if we went really realistically, there was no temple quite like the temple that we designed over in Toronto. But then coming to the Bok Kay Temple, we just felt like we're so inspired by the community part of it. We love little details like there's leftover oil bottles that you repurpose, and there's the cleaning supplies and the mop that's kind of nicely hidden, and all of those things just made it feel like it's a place for community, people playing chess, people coming here for after school, and because of that, the Bok Kay Temple kind of, a lot of the details make it. So, yes. Secrets. The first thing that pops into my mind is the tamagotchi. It's the little bow, the short bow. Yeah, let's see, other hidden things. There's other shorts like Pearl, that's a little hanging keychain on her desk. I'll keep thinking, but there's a bunch of little secrets. Yeah.
I think I'm so happy to see that. I think this movie is doing Toronto on the map.
Yes.
I totally missed that. Can you explain the metaphor of that red panther? Is that how is it exactly?
So why the red panda? Why red panda? All right. Let's see. There's a lot of reasons. I think a big reason is that it's cute. The red panda is cute. We felt like it had a Chinese heritage to it, and the main girl being Chinese Canadian, we just felt like that was a good fit. The red panda is not overly featured in media. Like you see a lot of, when you think Chinese, you think regular old pandas, but then you don't really see the red panda. So there's that reason. Another reason, once we started doing research on the red panda, we went to the SF Zoo, we met them, and the zookeepers talked to us about how they are very awkward, they are very reclusive, they come out at night, even though they feed on bamboo alone. It's not actually very nutritious for them, but it's all that they can evolve to eat, so they have to constantly eat it. And we thought, well, you know, they're awake at night, they're awkward, they're reclusive, they eat junk food. That kind of sounds like a teenager to us. And so we felt like that was the perfect pairing. Yeah.
Two-part question. How did you get involved with this project? And also, are you working on any other projects that feature the Chinese American community?
So how did I got involved in this? Domi and I, the director, we worked on Bow together, and that was a short. And that one we came into Pixar around the same time, and so we became friends a long time ago. We worked on Bow, and then with this, and at Pixar there's the interview process for any leadership role, so I had to go through that, but I felt like the relationship that we built over the years really did help, because I feel like artistically, aesthetically, we all kind of share similar language, like cute. When we say cute, we mean the same thing. When we, for example, for Turning Red, when we talk about early 2000s boy bands and like the color palette, Sailor Moon, anime, we all kind of start to speak the same language, and I feel like that's really important when creatives work together and speak the same language. In terms of projects that I'm working on now, it's been announced, so Inside Out 2, I'm working on that now, but that's coming out, I think, in a year. questions? I saw hands in the.
Hand in the back.
How long did it take to start from the start of the movie? I mean, to start the project itself, the actual completion, and actually showing it in debuting the movie?
I think the moment the idea came to Domi's mind and she started working in development, total it took about 4 years. I came on, the total time that I spent on it was a little over 2.5 years. To give you kind of a sense of like relativity, some of Pixar films took about 8 years, so 4 years is extremely fast, and I think that's what we always want to aim for. But yeah, the creative process is a messy one. I've seen your hand in the back.
Yeah, I'm raising the hand on behalf of him.
Why did you guys name it Fort Town?
Fort Town, you know there was you're way too young for this, but there's a boy band way back called O-Town. And then the joke with Fort Town is there's 5 members in the Fort Town, and 4 is such an unlucky number for us that it just became a funny thing, and it became a story point. Yeah.
What's interesting here is I've heard that for the rings.
Oh, maybe David can explain.
You know, the reason why 4 is for the lucky ring here is in those days it meant from good luck, good fortune, good chi comes from all 4 directions. That's why Bombay is done in the middle of this intersection of First and C. So the good fortune, good chi, good abundance will come from all directions. That's why 4 is lucky here.
Yeah. Not that I know of yet. Yeah, but I heard there's going to be a comic book.
Did you meet the actors?
Let's see. Did I meet any actors? Oh,
The actors in the movie.
yeah, the Korean girl. Sorry, the young girl, Abby. She's actually a storyboard artist at Pixar, and so when we have storyboards, usually what we do is scratch voices, and scratch voices is before we cast the actual actors, and those voices we get from just plain old employees at work, and sometimes one of their voices stick because they're just so perfect for the movie. And Abby, Payne, she's a storyboard artist, and her voice just was perfect. So we hang out.
I heard that this film was one of the first films that Pixar did that is an all-female creative team. So I was wondering, I guess 2-part question, how did it feel to work on an all-female creative team, and also to be doing an Asian American film for Pixar or mainstream Disney?
The Asian American one, I think it's easy to answer because we've always gotten a lot of support for it, and I think Domi's really brilliant, and I think with Bao, she has proven how successful she could be. And so I just feel like the studio never actually questioned this theme and what we were doing, so I always felt a lot of support. And at the time, it was Bob Chapek running the company, and I heard he was a huge fan of Turning Red because he just felt like his girls would really love it. So always had the support. In terms of the leadership and being in an all-women leadership, I felt like the communication it was just easy. One of the biggest examples I can give was about towards the later production, I got pregnant, and it was an easy conversation to have with my producer of like, hey, I'm gonna be a few weeks off because I'm gonna be giving birth. And she totally got it, and she gave me this example of on one movie she had to tell her boss, who was a man, twice that she got pregnant twice on the movie, and she just said it was the most awkward conversation because it's like, oh, you got knocked up again. So I didn't have that. Well, it depends on what you want to do. I think a movie like this, there's so many different components. From there's the writing the script, there's directing, there's writing the script, there's the storyboard, there's the art, there's the actual 3D models, there's the lighting, and so I think you can go from it from a computer science way, you can go from it from a creative way, from a writing type of way. So I think if you have a passion and you foster it, then there's a way of getting it. Yes.
How was Toronto chosen as a setting?
That's where our director grew up. So yeah, she has it's really personal. I think as personal as it is to a lot of us, it's also her kind of personal story with her own mom. And and she grew up in Toronto, Chinatown. And so sadly we didn't get to visit Toronto, Chinatown because Pixar is usually all about the research. But for us, when we started making it, we got sent home for COVID. So we did all of our research on Google Maps, and the team goes on Zoom, and we go, all right, you are gonna be on Dundas Street, and then we pop the little person in, and we're like, all right, and we're moving a block over. What do you see? What do you see? That's kind of how we did our research. I'll get you, and then I'll get you.
I was gonna say, how many visits or how long did you spend studying the Bok Kay Temple, and was that your first time in Marysville?
That was the first time, and we came here for a whole day. And so, yeah, and we took a lot of photos, met the temple keepers, and yeah, it was really great. But it made a huge impression, even though it was just once. Let me get you, and then I'll get you.
How did you decide on how the story went for the Red Candle?
Sorry, can you repeat?
How did you decide how the story went in the Red Candle?
How do we decide? So, Domi, the director, would have kind of a vision for how the story might progress. For example, when this thing happens, she would get emotionally caught up and she would need to do something like push her into like act 2, into this conflict with her mom. She would have this general idea. We would bring on a writer, Julia in this case, and she would be the one to kind of write each line, and she would very specifically write and indicate what they say to each other, what is the actual event. The director is there to guide, and then you get a screenwriter who's there for the story. And very rarely you would have a director who writes and directs his or her own movie. So, you, yep.
Hi. Was the script and the story already set when you went into designing the production, or was it kind of like the production design fueled the script?
I would say it's, there is a little bit of a, we're not always moving at the same speed. It's a little bit staggered. So it goes screenwriting, and then it goes storyboarding, and then it goes to us and art and design. And we're kind of closely working all together. So I think what ends up happening is in the Pixar process, there's 8 screenings in general. After the 8th screening, your movie's basically looking towards done, and you're not making changes. But all the way up until the 8th screening, you're still making changes. And then so, we could be designing something, and then 2 weeks later, the story shifts, and then now this set is no longer in the story, or this character is no longer in the story. So for us in art, I think part of the challenge is anticipating that things will always change, and how can we start building and organize, creating the world in a way that anticipates these changes, and we don't lose too much time or money. So that's always kind of the puzzle.
Was there more than one ending that you guys discussed?
I can tell you there's been like 8 different, very different versions. And I think Act 3 always comes later on. So it's usually one of the last things to be figured out. We knew that there had to be a final battle. We knew that mother and daughter have to have a showdown, and it has to be very destructive. at one point it was going to be on the streets of Toronto. Once another version was towards the pier, and then in this version it ended up in the Sky Dome on the night of the concert. There are other versions where the aunties weren't in the movie, and it was going to be this like Ming had a sister. In one version, Tyler is actually the cousin, not just a friend at school. It all keeps shifting, and so yeah.
I am very interested in learning from the very beginning, the process before it reaches a large team. How is the team formed? Is it, for example, a person with an idea going to somebody to say, okay, I've got the money, you can proceed, and then you build teammate number 2, teammate number 3, until you have some team to work on it, or how does that process get going?
Well, Pixar is part of Disney, so I feel like the process is extremely different than how movies are made out there, out in the real world. Because I think in the real world, you actually have to secure funding with the script, and then each time you get more investors and you get your money back. But here, we have kind of a set average budget for each film. And so money is kind of, Disney kind of approves a certain budget, and you try to make the film under this budget. And in terms of our process, it's the director goes into development in their little bubble, and they come up with 3 stories. They pitch it to Pixar and the Pixar execs, and the execs will say maybe one of the stories is the most compelling. Now work on that, and usually then we bring on a writer, and the writer and the director will work together to come up with a compelling script, and then that will go through another round of review. If that's good, then it gets greenlit, and if it gets greenlit, then they bring on storyboard artists to start boarding. It's kind of a blueprint of the whole entire movie, and if that goes further, then we bring on the team.
So the director is the first writer. The director is the first writer.
The director is the first writer.
The director is probably the person with the concept, and then the writer will work with them to flesh it all out.
I was actually wondering if you or the creative team of Pixar has had any feedback on sort of the audience reaction from both the Asian American community on this film versus a general audience, or is there any difference in the take on the film? And that's because we have a large Chinese American audience here, so on how that experience was like in watching this film, or maybe this is a good question for the audience in terms of the the take on your experience in watching this film. Whether the story or resonates, or how does it resonate with you?
Yeah, I would love to hear it from everybody, because I feel like I can also see people of all ages. At work, we haven't talked about it as a company, but I've read every article that I can find, and the general gist that I feel like I hear is that, oh, this is more of a teen movie. Maybe it's not for my kid. Why are you guys talking about puberty? And what is that all about? And, so I feel like it's, from what I know, monetarily, it's doing great on Disney Plus. So I feel like it's a success. But some people can have their opinions, but no. But I do feel like from what I read, there is the kind of the opinion of like, this is not a typical Pixar kids movie. This is more I don't know, daring maybe, quote unquote. What do you think?
Yeah. What does the audience think?
How do you consider yourself? Do you think of yourself as a Hollywood person, or?
Oh, no. We're Pixar. We're like Silicon Valley. We're like tech nerds, kind of. I feel like there are times where, especially now it's award season, we go down to there and we're like, oh, we don't belong. We're like hillbillies, so we're like Hollywood. Yeah.
Are you gonna have to go to the Oscar ceremonies?
I I'm not going this time. On Bow, there was some extra tickets, I think from Incredibles 2 that trickled down and I got invited, and that was really cool. But one day I hope to go back, but no, not soon. We kept calling it a period piece. I think it was just very natural, and I think in some ways Pixar has been really encouraging kind of a new wave of younger directors to kind of talk about their stories. And I think for us, it just is a territory that nobody has ever encroached on, but it's like we go through it month to month. How come no one ever talks about it? We've all fantasized about boy bands. How come nobody talks about it? Yeah, it's just, I feel like it's a natural thing from, I keep saying this generation, but we're already old. So, yeah, we had an intern, because I feel like I've always been on that end of people going like, oh, you're so young. And then we had an intern on the art team, and I was kicking her off on a project, and I was like, tap into your own mind and your own memories of the boy bands like Backstreet Boys and NSYNC. And she goes, Rona, that's not my era. She was like, it's your era. You're 30-something. I'm only 19. And then, like, oh, that's right. You weren't born yet.
I have an audience reaction, which is, I think what's brilliant for me is how many movies have we seen that dominated it's come in an age story, but it's told in such a unique way that I feel seen. Yes, I am of the boy band era. When I see Boy Town, I remember Hotel, and I thought of them as in sync, and I was just cracking up. But it's so real because, whether you're first generation, second generation, there always is that struggle between wanting to honor the family, honoring the culture, but also trying to find yourself in all of this. And I think it's done so beautifully because the panda is so hyperbolic. There's actually a Japanese anime of very similar, I don't know if you know about it, but this very young bright girl goes in, she's very like rosy tinted and thinks that she's gonna change the world at 25, going to corporate Japan, and when she loses it, she turns into a rat panda too. And it's great. And I just think when the aunties came in and every single one of them had the charm and they all had to go through the ritual of suppressing who they really are because you're women, you're messy, you have lots of emotions, you gotta keep that shit down. That really resonated with me. And I think it's so brilliant and I'm so happy that Pixar is pushing boundaries to do stuff. That's my reaction as a fan.
You talked about the female leadership, and I think that's what was really fitting for this film is they all got it, and I think our producer pushed really hard. I think movie making aside, a huge part of our day-to-day, week-to-week is working with consumer products, because with every movie comes the toys, the product placement, and she was fighting really hard to get Turning Red onto pads and stuff. I don't think it ever happened, but I think that's a producer who gets it, and I think that's the power to the all-female team.
Are you looking over your shoulder because of Chat GPT? AI. Are you worried?
You need to explain more.
Chat GPT is the new AI program. Supposedly, you can tell this program what movie you want or picture you want to do. Do you think AI can produce something this in the very near future?
Maybe. I guess we just all have to get smarter to beat that.
David, AI can produce a framework and still need the human to edit.
I would hope we don't become obsolete, but you never know.
You make your turn first.
I wonder if you could share something about your own story, how you got started, how you got your breaks, any disappointments, and what are your future goals?
Alright, where I got started. I immigrated here when I was 10 years old. I went to art school in Pasadena, graduated, got a job interning at Disney Consumer Products. I majored in illustration, not sure what I was going to do. I'm going to jump to kind of the funnier part of the story was I got a job after at a social gaming place. I got really, I just got laid off, and I was super lost at where I wanted to go. I wanted to milk the unemployment money. So, but then at the same time, I didn't know this at the time. Apparently, you don't have to try to look for a job every week and put it on your sheet and whatever. But I was being the super like A+ Asian kid, and so every week I tried to apply to somewhere that I knew I couldn't get into and would get rejected just so I could keep getting my unemployment. And then I thought, I'll apply to Pixar because I got rejected twice from their internship program not too long ago. And but they had an opening for a full-time. And so I'm never getting that. And then so I applied for them, and they called me back, and they're like, would you like to interview? And I interviewed. It was gruesome. It was really hard. It was like 15-minute interviews back to back with 16 different people. And I thought I failed it. And then a week later, they called me, and they're like, you got it. And I said, are you kidding me? This is right. So that's how I got into Pixar. It's by complete failure. So don't be afraid of not having a job, because it leads to a job. And who cares? Even if you don't have a job, whatever. And, I don't know. My mom wouldn't agree with that. I didn't say that. And then now I think with the opportunities with Bao, it really came from a friendship with Domi, and I think aligning yourself with people who share the same interests with you. So if you like video games, don't be afraid to be friends with other people who like video games, because I think you never know where the interests might take you. And for us, it was always a love of anime at Studio Ghibli, and we bonded over that. That was a huge inspiration for Bao, and then that led to this opportunity. Future opportunities, I really hope to work with Domi again whenever she come up with another story. And for myself, I think the main thing is just taking care of my son right now. He's almost 2, so it's the family life for me right now. Yeah.
Wrap up. 4 o'clock is Bond Day out in Version 8. But let's take one quick question.
Yeah, I just wanted to respond to that this film. Its main audience is a teenage girl going through puberty, and the mother, the grandmother. So I'm not a teenage anything. I'm a grandpa, but the movie reminds me so much of myself. Bring out my own daughter, who is in her 40s now. But it really resonated with the movie. And one more thing I want to say, your background yourself, because I taught graphic design in art school. Brenda Chapman was my student years ago. Of course, she's a great thing, but movie now, right? She's the first woman director of a...
Yeah, she started directing on Brave.
That's right.
Yeah,